What is the smallest thing that has ever completely destroyed your sense of reality? Not a dramatic event, not something massive and undeniable. I mean the small thing, the detail, the moment where one piece of ordinary information lands in the wrong place, and suddenly everything you thought was solid turns out to have been resting on nothing at all. For Rachel, and that is not her real name, she asked me specifically not to use her real name. And unlike with some requests I receive, I am going to honor this one absolutely, because I think she deserves that. For Rachel, it was a police officer saying 4 words. The unit is vacant. 4 words. That was all it took. 4 words on an ordinary Tuesday morning in April, standing on her own front step with car keys in her hand and a coffee she had not yet had the first sip of. 4 words, and every morning of the previous 26 months rearranged themselves into something she did not recognize. Here is what those 26 months looked like from the outside. Rachel moved into her apartment, ground floor unit in a 2-story residential building, 8 units total. In February, 3 years before the morning in April. The building was pleasant and nondescript, the kind of place that exists in every mid-sized city, that people move into when they are at a certain stage of life and need somewhere sensible and affordable and not too far from work. The unit next to hers, Unit 4, separated from her Unit 3 by a shared wall and a narrow concrete path between their respective front doors, was occupied, when she moved in, by a man she came to think of as her neighbor. She never learned his name. She never had a real conversation with him. Their relationship, such as it was, consisted entirely of the morning exchange. She would be leaving for work, he would be standing on his small front step with a mug in his hand, and they would acknowledge each other. A wave, sometimes a nod, once or twice. She thinks, though she is less sure of this now than she was before, a brief phrase. Morning, terrible weather, have a good one. She described him as medium height, unremarkable, usually in dark clothing, face that she would struggle to describe in detail, because she had never looked at it carefully. Because why would she? Because it was her neighbor, and she saw him every day, and there was no reason to look at him the way you look at something you are trying to remember. This is the part that keeps her up at night. Not what happened. What she cannot recall. She cannot recall his face. She has tried. She has sat in a quiet room and closed her eyes and tried to reconstruct it, and what she gets is an impression. Height, dark clothing, mug in hand, the posture of someone standing in a familiar place in the morning, but the face will not resolve. It remains blurred, not the way a forgotten face blurs over time. In a different way, more as if the face was never fully rendered in the first place. As if her memory holds a placeholder where the face should be. She waved at this person every morning for 26 months. And then on a Tuesday in April, she came out of her front door to find 2 police officers in the narrow path between the units and yellow tape across the door of Unit 4, and one of the officers asking her when she had last seen the resident of that unit. She said, "This morning. He was on his step when I left." He waved. The officer looked at his partner, and then he looked back at her, and he said, carefully, in the way of someone who needs the next sentence to land correctly. He said, "Ma'am, this unit has been vacant and sealed for 26 months. The previous tenant was reported missing in February 2 years ago and has not been located. No one has had access to this unit in that time. The seal on the door is intact." Rachel looked at the door of Unit 4. The police tape. The seal. Intact. She said, "But I see him every morning." The officer said nothing. She said, "I waved at him this morning. He was standing right there, right on that step." She pointed at the step. The step where her neighbor had stood every single morning for 26 months was covered in a thin layer of undisturbed grime and leaf debris, and the specific accumulation of a surface that no one had stood on recently. No footprints. No disturbance. Nothing. She had waved at that step 45 minutes earlier. What follows is what Rachel wrote to me, exactly as she wrote it, across 3 emails sent over 2 weeks, because she could not get through it faster than that. She wrote, "After the police left, I went inside and I sat on my couch and I tried to do the thing you do when something is wrong, which is think about it rationally. I tried to build a rational structure around it. I told myself, you misremember. You thought you saw him, but you saw someone else, a maintenance person, another tenant, someone passing on the path. Your brain filled in the familiar shape. Brains do that. They predict. They take incomplete information and complete it using pattern recognition. You pattern recognized your neighbor when what you actually saw was nothing, or was something else, or was ordinary and unremarkable. She wrote, I tried to believe that for about 4 hours. Then she went through her phone. She had, because she was the kind of person who documents things without realizing she is doing it. Approximately 200 photos taken in or around her apartment over the previous 2 years. She had not taken them of her neighbor deliberately. He appeared in them incidentally. Backgrounds of photos taken from her front step. The edge of a photo of her car. A shot of her front path that she had taken to show a friend the new potted plant she'd put by her door. She went through all of them. In 31 photographs taken over 26 months, the step of Unit 4 is visible in the frame. In 22 of those 31 photographs, there is a figure on the step. In every one of those 22 photographs, the figure is turned away from the camera or positioned at an angle where the face is not captured, or the image is slightly blurred in exactly the area where the face would be, not the rest of the figure, not the step, not the doorframe behind it. Just the face. Consistently. Across 2 years of incidental photography. In 22 photographs, across 26 months, the face of her neighbor is not visible in a single one. She sent me the photographs. I have looked at all of them. She is right. The missing tenant, the one who had lived in Unit 4 before it was sealed, was a 34-year-old man named, and I have confirmed this from the missing persons report, which is a matter of public record, Gary Ellison. He had lived in Unit 4 for 7 months before his disappearance. He was reported missing by his employer after failing to appear for work for 11 consecutive days. His apartment, when police entered, showed no signs of disturbance, no signs of packing, no signs of voluntary departure. His wallet, phone, and keys were on the kitchen counter. He was, by all accounts, medium height. He was, in the photograph attached to the missing persons report, wearing dark clothing. Rachel looked at that photograph for a long time. She told me, it could be him. I cannot tell you it is him. I cannot tell you it isn't. I look at that photograph, and I look at my memory of the shape on the step, and I cannot match them or unmatch them because the face in my memory of the step is not there to compare. She said, I don't know what I waved at every morning for 2 years. She said, I think whatever it was, it knew that I wouldn't look closely. It knew that I would accept the pattern, that I would see neighbor-shaped and fill in the rest myself. She said, I think that was the whole point. To be seen without being seen. To exist in the peripheral vision of another person's life for as long as possible without ever being looked at directly. She said, I think about how many mornings I could have turned and actually looked. Could have walked over and introduced myself. Could have broken the routine just enough to make it look back at me properly. She never did. It never needed her to. She moved out of that apartment 6 weeks after the Tuesday in April. She does not know who reported the smell that brought the police to Unit 4 in the first place. The officers would not tell her, and the public record does not specify. She does not know what they found inside. The case is ongoing, and she has been asked not to discuss certain details, and she is honoring that request. Gary Ellison has not been found. Rachel lives across town now, in a new apartment, top floor, with a direct line of sight to the street from her front door and no shared path with any neighboring unit. She still does not look closely at the neighbors. She told me, I know that seems like the wrong lesson. It probably is the wrong lesson, but I am not ready yet for what I might see if I look. She said, some things survive on not being looked at directly. She said, I'd rather not be the one who looks. She said, wouldn't you? I have been thinking about that question. I have been thinking about the 22 photographs and the blurred face that is not there in any of them. I have been thinking about the step with the undisturbed grime and the intact seal and the 2 years of mourning acknowledgement that Rachel gave to something that was standing in a sealed, empty apartment's doorway. I have been thinking about all the mornings you have nodded at someone familiar. All the times the shape was right, and you filled in the rest. All the faces you have accepted without looking at. Think about the people you pass every day. Your neighbors. The person at the coffee shop. The figure you see every morning in the same place at the same time. When did you last actually look at their face? When did you last stop and confirm that what you were seeing was what you thought you were seeing? When did you last make sure? Stay safe. And when you get home tonight, actually look at the face of whoever is waiting outside your door. Don't just wave. Look.